Eric Filseth, thank you for joining me for this special election edition of Behind the Headlines.
Thank you very much for having me in.
So just to let our viewers know, this series is to give voters a more well-rounded understanding of the people who are hoping to lead the city. So we'll be talking about your life and experiences, some of the people who've meant a lot to you, and some of the life lessons that you've learned along the way. First, the Cliff Notes version of your life. You've been on the City Council for 4 years. You've had a decades-long career in the semiconductor industry, and you and your wife have lived in downtown North, where you've raised 2 boys. So let's talk about your upbringing. I understand you were born in Wisconsin and then were raised in a farming community in Canada.
Foreign country, yes, that's right.
How did you end up there?
Yeah, no, my families were basically Norwegian immigrants at around the turn of the century, and they sort of migrated west, and most of them ended up, there weren't a lot of us, but most of us ended up on the West Coast. Mm-hmm. But my father was an academic. He was a chemistry professor, and in the late 60s, we moved to Ontario, Canada. And I was born in Eagle Heights when he was doing his PhD in University of Madison.
Okay.
University of Wisconsin-Madison. And we sort of kicked around the country a little bit. We were in Boulder for a little while and Los Angeles for a while. And anyway, in the late 60s, we moved to Toronto, and ended up settling in rural Ontario, about an hour's drive north of the city, about halfway between Toronto and Barrie, if that means anything. And so that's where I grew up. It's we weren't even in a town. Nearest town was a couple miles away. We were out.
You were really out there.
We were. I think it's probably not different from rural America. If you were in Montana or someplace like that, or upstate New York, I think there's parts that are probably similar. And so
neighbors are far.
That's where I grew up. I rode the school bus to school 45 minutes every day, and
uphill both ways.
Uphill both ways through the snow. Right? We had a well. Right? We took our garbage to the dump on Sundays every weekend. Right? Well, I think you call it the landfill now. Right?
Yeah,
so forth.
yeah. And your mom was a stay-at-home? Or?
My mom stayed at home,
okay.
And my dad commuted an hour each way to the city for 35 years.
Okay.
And
you had siblings?
I had a brother and a much younger sister, went to high school there. We had 5 years of high school, so we did have a grade 13 in those days. And
you're the first person I've met who's gone to grade 13, and it wasn't a holdback.
Yeah, no, I don't think they do that anymore, but we had grade 13 in those days.
Okay.
And, so it was the 5th year of high school, and the way it worked was, we had about 2,000 kids in my high school, and it was pretty much a farm country. I mean, there were a few people like my dad that were sort of long-distance commuters to the city, right? And there's a lot more now as Toronto has grown north, right? But in those days, it was pretty much a farming community, and so forth. And so, most of the kids that went to my high school didn't go to college. I mean, didn't go to what we call university, which is 4-year college and so forth. But if you were going to do that, then you stayed and did an extra year. So if you weren't going to do that, you graduated in grade 12, right, and went and got a job, right?
Yeah.
And if you were going to go on to university, then you stayed for grade 13, which is what I did. And so it's a much smaller number.
Did everyone pretty much work like through high school?
Pretty much, I did summers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There was one summer I worked in Molson's Brewery in Barrie, Ontario.
What did you do?
I think nominally my job was standing on an assembly line, slapping cardboard liners into cases of beer. But I did all kinds of stuff. I got a scar somewhere. On one of these hands, still got a scar from picking up a broken bottle the wrong way. No, it's. So
you were learning the value
you could
of
drink
work.
beer. They let you drink beer on the job, right? So people didn't abuse it, right? No, people didn't abuse it. Right?
What was the drinking age there?
17. So there was a bar in town that catered to high school seniors because everybody was 17 or 18.
I'm sure that was very popular.
The Cave, the Alliston Cave. That's right.
All right. Well, let's talk about some of the people who were influential in your life, teachers or relatives.
I was thinking about that. It's my dad for sure. Yeah. I mean, my dad is. mean, we were sort of small town academic kind of, but he's a incredibly smart, principled, fair, ethical guy, right? You know, I just, I want to be like him, right? Right? And everybody liked him, and you know, he was kind to everybody and so forth. And and he's down. They left Ontario, and they live in Hollister now. It's my folks. He's in his 80s. He still plays tennis, right?
Wow. What a great role model.
I think, yeah, you know, you know, my little brother, who's the one that got all the brains in the family, you know, I'm like massively proud of him. Right?
What's he doing?
He's a software architect. He works for Synopsys out here, too. So, yeah, we're all sort of out here. Let's see, my high school English teacher, Miss Vinden, when I was in grade school, never liked English, you know, and my dad told me, well, I said, I take it, because we had lanes there just like you do in everywhere, and I said, I don't like English, right? I like math, right?
Yeah.
He said, why don't you take the high level English lane? And I said, why would I do that? And he said, well, you might like it. So I did, right? And that was a good lesson, okay, because I did, and I just loved it. I had a great teacher, Ms. Vinden, became Mrs. Waba later, right? And after that, I loved English.
Wow.
And so that was his advice was, you know, if there's something you don't like, you know, take the hard one, okay, because, you know, you might find you like it more. And I've tried to do that, and sometimes it's worked, and sometimes it hadn't. But you know, but she was, you know, she was. I've loved English ever since.
What was it about how she taught, or
what
she did?
I don't know, you know. But I
to
came to love Shakespeare and Conrad, and you know, Kipling. Right. Other people. I've had a lot of people who influenced me when I was in my corporate career. I mean.
Yeah. Tell me about some of those.
Yeah, no, I've been incredibly lucky. I've got to work with some just massively talented people. Right? Just being able to work with them is a reward in its own. But, Jim Solomon and Charlie Janik, who founded Cadence, you know, long before I was there, right? But I actually got to work with those guys. Boy, who am I thinking of? Ping Chow. I mean, even now, you know, one of the things I go to is, geez, what would Ping do if he was right?
Was it that he just made good decisions?
Just phenomenally smart, capable, mature, well-balanced, wise people. It's like, wow, you know, right? It's when you get to be the dumbest guy in the room, it's a real privilege, right?
And that's a great perspective too.
Right? You know, the truth is, I probably skated a little much through high school, more than I should have. And I went to Stanford. Stanford was a shock, right? Because
I was going to ask you about that.
Stanford was a shock, right? I couldn't skate through it anymore, right? I was like the dumb guy then. Right? But that was, you know, I learned a lot there, and I went and I worked for my first job out of school was National Semiconductor, and I was a chip designer, and that was fun. But I got interested in business, and I went and did an MBA in UCLA, and I learned a lot from that. And I came back, and you know, and I worked for, you know, I ended up working for Cadence a long time, right? But what happened was I started a couple of small companies, and they kept getting acquired by Cadence, right? That's how I ended up at Cadence for so long, right? But
you tried to get away, you just come right back.
Yeah. I know one guy that had been acquired 6 times by Cadence, Craig Robbins, right? I mean, it's just amazing, right? I think I was only twice, right? But
what was it about the semiconductor industry that really was fun for you?
You know, I was an electrical engineer, right? And it's an intellectual challenge, right? And you know, I was in a domain which most people weren't going into in those days, which was called quote unquote analog, right? So I was not a computer guy. I was more like a radio and amplifier person. And you know, it's simultaneously a technical and a creative challenge. I mean, there's quite a bit of creativity that goes into it, and there's a lot of room for self-expression and stuff like that, and it's kind of fun. And you know, there's some massively smart and colorful people that do it. You know, I mean, Bob Pease showed me how to help me figure out how to design current feedback amplifiers, which is, you know, legendary guys, right? Stuff like that. And even when I was afterwards, you know, after I did my MBA, one of the things that was the coolest thing about my career is I got to see some really cool stuff. So I think it was in the very late 80s, early 90s, where I made a call on our customer Mitsubishi in Kita, Itami, Japan.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And they were doing the first high-definition TVs.
Oh, wow.
And, I'd never seen anything like this before. And they hadn't even been released yet. And they said, hey, come on back here, right? And they took us into a room, and they had a prototype. And they had to dim the lights because they couldn't get the thing to be bright enough. But it was like, whoa, we'd never seen anything. I mean, now we have Blu-ray and so forth.
Yeah.
But nobody had ever seen anything like that. So that's cool, right?
So you feel like you're on the cutting edge.
I got to
by
see a
seeing what
lot of
people
cool
are doing.
stuff.
Yeah.
Right? No,
That's really
sure.
awesome. Well, I want to switch from your career to what you're doing right now. As I understand, you're kind of on a sabbatical from the paid workforce
Yeah.
for the last 6 years. So how did that come about?
Well, I worked for Cadence for, all told, all put together, 16 years, right? And I was a vice president there for a number of years in the 90s. And then I went to a small company where I was the CEO, which was Ciranova, and I was there for 5 years. And we ended up selling to Synopsys. And so at that point, I was out, going to go get another job. And what I've characterized as a management decision was made in my household. Right?
It was made.
Maybe it was a management decision. Yes, it was a man. I was part of the management team, and it was that maybe I ought to take a little bit of time off while my kids were still home and in high school and so forth, because they had a couple of years to go. And so then my next job was director of transportation for the Filseth family for a couple of years, and so during that time I sort of got involved in some neighborhood activism, and Nielsen Buchanan lives a block from me, and we got interested in the parking thing.
Yeah.
And so I was out helping Nielsen count cars, and I did some of the original models for, how fast is it going to intrude into more neighborhoods and stuff like that. And from that, one thing kind of led to another, and I ended up running for city council, and was elected in 2014. And so this is my first public service job since the 9th grade student council in Alliston, Ontario, right?
So you had no kind of inkling when you took time off that you might end up doing this?
No.
Okay.
I mean, I'm invested in a few startups and some stuff like that, but it's nothing. I'm not working full time right now.
Yeah.
And so I am really glad I did that. I mean, the truth is I was traveling all the time when I had my corporate career. I think I figured I'd been to Asia 50 times or something like that, and Europe just as many, and so forth. And so I actually saw a lot more of my kids the last couple of years.
That's great.
And that was.
Did you have any memorable times from
those
being at home?
The truth is, I learned a lot of American history from my kids, right? Because they were all taking APUSH and Pali and so forth, and we never studied that when I was in high school. I mean, I knew who all the kings and queens of England were, okay, and the 100 Years' War, okay, and the Lancasters and the Plantagenets and the Yorks and so forth, right? American history we didn't study, right? So I actually learned a lot of it and the whole issue of democracy and so forth. I learned that through my kids when they were in high school. Right?
Now you're fully educated.
There you go, right? I know nothing about everything, so.
So I'm wondering, as you've navigated career, family, the civic life, are there any lessons that you've learned about what's important in life or what's important in society that you'd like to share with the viewers?
Oh, wow. One of the things I really like working with engineers, because most of my career I worked with engineers, most engineers are pretty high integrity, smart, ethical people. I mean, they tend to be pretty cut and dried people. 2 and 2 is 4, and that's it. Truth is truth. And, I like that, and I think people should be that way, right? So I told my kids, be that way, right? Be.
What you see is what you get.
Be what you see is what you get.
Yeah,
right?
Great.
That's right. I think.
So.
Best thing that happened in my life is I met my wife at Stanford.
Tell me about her.
Right. Yeah. So that's marry the right person. There you go. Right. That's right.
Oh, so easy.
Yeah. Very right.
So she's a veterinarian.
She's a veterinarian. Yeah.
And
she was a microbiologist actually for a little while, and she worked for Syntex up here before they were Roche, and then it's now VMware and so forth. And chucked it all a few years later and went to veterinary school. Said, I'm going to deal with larger animals than, ones you
Very
can
much
see under
larger.
a microscope, right? So
Yeah. And you're both dedicated environmentalists.
yeah, my dad was a real outdoors kind of guy. I mean, this is because it sounds. I'm sure this sounds terribly pastoral, and it really wasn't, right? But we live out in the sticks. I mean, and we lived in the woods, right? We had woods and so forth. I mean, land is worth nothing out there, and we, 10 acres, which sounds like a palace around here, and it's worth nothing out there because it's in the middle of nowhere. But it was so half it was woods, and it's a real outdoors guy. My wife is a real hardcore, dedicated person. We're just sort of environment people, right? All our charities are environmental charities, and I think we're harder core than some people, although it doesn't always show. Real environmentalists are not always nice people. Right. But yeah, no, I think that was my dad's. Just leave the planet no worse than you found it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was going to ask you, as I'm doing all of the candidates, with the tenor of civic discourse these days, nationally, locally, do you have any thoughts about kind of your observations of what's going on, and are there ways forward from disunity to unity?
Unity. I really think that the country at large is not as polarized as the political parties.
Okay.
Right?
Uh-huh.
And I think there are a variety of reasons for that. Right? But I think that, because, my brother-in-law, he's a policeman in Los Angeles, right? I like him a lot. He's a real dirty fingernails guy, right? And he probably didn't vote at all, but if he did, I'm sure he voted for Trump.
Okay.
But, he's not a bad guy. He's not a deplorable, right? He's,
Sure.
I think the political parties tend to, for whatever reason, they tend to sort of move towards the outer sides of the Six Sigma curve, right? And I think most people really aren't there, and I think that's unfortunate, right? So I wish the dialogue didn't get quite as polarized, because I don't think it represents most of the country.
Do you think
A little bit, yes, okay, but
some people
not
are
the
on the
not the
edges?
majority. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we're a bell curve, and most of us are, sort of closer to the median than people think.
Yeah. And what do you think about local issues and divisions that exist here? Do you think that something can be done or should be done?
I think things aren't quite as divisive in town as sometimes it may appear to be when you sort of look around. And there's some people that are really passionate, right? The whole housing thing, right? I think most people in town would like to see some more housing, okay? At the same time, I think most people in town kind of like this sort of, low-rise, suburban, moderate density environment that we got, okay? And there's potential for tension between those two things. And I think our job in government is sort of figure out, okay, given those, how do we make all this work? But that said, there are some people on this side that feel really, really passionately about it, and there's some people on that side that feel really, really passionate about it, and they sort of get an outsized amount of the airspace, right? And I think most people are sort of along the lines of, here, help us figure out how to sort of navigate this, and so we can do the best possible job and try to square the circle, right? And I think most people are like that.
So you would pay more attention to the inside of the bell curve.
I think that's our core responsibility, is that core constituency of the mainstream. But it's hard to get, or it's easy to get caught up in the other stuff because, as Jefferson said, we don't rule by majority, we rule by majority who show up, right? Right? And so there's that dynamic, and it's easy to get caught up in that stuff. I think you really got to make sure you got to work hard to make sure that you're sort of still grounded in sort of what most people in the town want, because that's who we work for. It's the majority of residents.
Sounds good.
Was there anything else that you wanted to mention about your life or experiences?
Thank you, Mom. Right? Yeah. No, I think I've been really lucky. I was fortunate enough to be reasonably successful in my career, and it wasn't, I had one hit startup. It was sort of, for me, it's been an accumulation of a long process. I mean, every time I thought they were going to fire me, they promoted me instead. Right? But no, I've been fantastically lucky. I've got to work with just really incredible people. I've had some really incredible people work for me. Okay, it's been a huge privilege. Dave DeHarness, who's now a senior vice president of American Express, Ashu Mauskar, who runs a huge design services operation now. I mean, it's been so much. It's been such a privilege to work with so many talented people all these years, I've been lucky. Right.
Sounds like it's been a good ride so far.
So far, I mean, it's like ups and downs, like everywhere, of course. Every job is 80% grunge work and 20% interesting work, but I've been pretty I can't complain. I've been pretty fortunate.
Well, I've really enjoyed learning a little bit more about you, Eric. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much for having me.